Okay, welcome along to Vaginal Atrophy Month. I am chatting with Gill Bauer. Gill, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do and then we'll get on to the topic?
Okay, so I come to perimenopause from sort of a different angle. I come from more of a holistic approach. For me, HRT is not an option, so I was looking at other things that I can do. Now, I understand HRT, people either love it and it works for them, but it doesn't always work for everybody, and there's some gaps. And so for me, I've gone through this 9-year perimenopausal journey, and I've looked for sort of natural, organic, holistic, more type approaches. And so, you know, when I address the vaginal atrophy, I'm coming from that side, but also looking at all aspects and what can help women.
So vaginal atrophy is one of those topics that people get very uncomfortable talking about, nervous to talk about, but obviously it happens just as much as any of the other symptoms, and we need to be much more open about it, don't we? So how do you help people when they're struggling with it?
Well, absolutely. It's one of those topics, like the pelvic floors, are really difficult trying to reach women because people don't want to admit that they've got this problem. They don't want to talk about it. And a couple of years back, when I was starting to have this problem and looking into it and doing research, I stumbled across a really great book. I was doing my pelvic floor training course at that time as well. And I would recommend it. It's called Me and My Menopause Vagina.
I swear every single woman should read that book. Every
woman should
single woman. And Jane Lewis should get a sainthood for writing it.
Oh, she's brilliant. And so I was on holiday, and I don't have a shame gland, right? So just be aware that I don't have a shame gland. And I was reading my book. I was on holiday around the pool, and I was on holiday actually with a group of girls. It was one of our 50th birthdays, and we were going on holiday. I think there was 18 of us, you know, and I'm reading my book. And literally one by one, secretly they'll go, "Oh, what's that book about?" Go, "Your vagina." And they say, "Oh, I'm having problems. Maybe I can come and have a talk to you later." I go, yeah, I'm open. And even strangers were coming up and talking to me about it. And so sometimes we need something like this to open up the conversation, and, you know, don't be embarrassed to talk about it, because the chances are you will go through it at some point. Now, some women will experience this mildly, and some women might experience this quite chronically. And when it's chronic, it's a really disabling condition, and when it's mild, it's embarrassing and painful, and it can lead to relationship issues because you don't want to talk about it and you don't want to address it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the most obvious way to resolve it is to go to the doctor and get local estrogen, but you've already said you prefer to go down the non-medical route. So what sort of options can people look into if they are experiencing, you know, extreme dryness in their vagina and their vulva, and they're wanting to not go and get a prescription medication?
Okay, so for me, on my research and my own experience as well, it comes down to two things: atrophy and entropy. So these things are not really talked about. Yes, it's in the title, but do we really understand what those two things mean? And I think once you understand what those two things mean and how it affects you, then there opens up the door to solutions. So atrophy means a lack of blood flow to an area that will weaken the muscles. So you think about the vagina is built up of ligaments and muscles, you know, 16 plus important big muscles and different ligaments. And then within the lining of the womb is coated in cells. All of these things need a good supply of blood. And so when we are in our fertility making, you know, creating babies mode, energy flows downwards towards the genitals from the brain down. But then once we start going through the perimenopause, what happens is we're not getting that flow of blood and energy down. So atrophy is blood flow, entropy is energy flow. So we're not getting the energy, and that can be ATP, mitochondria, you know, chi, life force, you know, just energy. So that's an area that I come from, you know, the energy world. And we have a saying, where blood goes, energy follows, and where energy goes, blood follows. And so when you bring fresh blood flow, that will make that area, the muscles, the cells, the lining more healthy. And when we bring energy there, that will make that area more robust, and give it life force. So, you know, during our creative fertile years, energy goes down. And then as we come through perimenopause and into menopause, whoosh, the energy starts coming up. And that is just a whole new topic for another day, when we start to work with that energy. So it's looking at solutions and issues of how do we get more blood flow to the area, and how do we get energy into that area.
And my next question is going to be, how do we do that? What are the options?
Well, let's have a look at some of the symptoms that might come up quickly about atrophy. And, you know, it can be just there's a dryness there. It could be spotting after intercourse. It could be urinary infections. It could be thrush. It could be discharge. It could be just the thinning of the walls, inflammation. So you start having sex and it's really painful, and then you don't want to have sex because it's really painful. You don't want to tell your partner that it's really painful, and it's discomforting, and so you just don't stop having sex. So one of the things which can be really disconcerting is that you go to the GP. I'm sure they don't say this now, but you know, Jane talks about her experience, where the GPs just say you've got to use it or lose it, because when you are intimate, the brain will send a signal to the genitals to allow blood flow, and that whole topic is about the hypothalamus, and it's an overlooked, not talked about area. So if our hypothalamus, which is part of the brain, is working, it communicates brain to body down to the genitals. So the hypothalamus is responsible for all the secretion, all the bodily fluids, body temperature, regulation of hormones, awake sleep cycles, emotions, behavior, mood, memory, everything. You know, that's the 40 symptoms of menopause. So we look at ways to get blood flow down to the genitals, and that could be just thinking about having sex, being more intimate. You know, obviously there's loads of products that we can use to moisturize. So we talk about, so I actually do energy facials, but there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do some vaginal facials on ourselves, and using sort of really natural products. I wouldn't use any chemicals. And so it's looking at the symptoms, and, you know, then you might need, you know, low estrogen is a cause, so pessaries might help as well. So that's just a quick overview of some of the things, but there's a lot more that we can do.
Awesome. So in very simple terms, and I don't want to use the phrase use it or lose it, because that is just one of those ones that gets bandied around and doesn't actually help anybody, but keeping the brain and genital link going can really help to just keep things ticking over. Is that what you found?
Yeah. So in kinesiology, qigong, womb healing, all of these sort of modalities, what we do is we try and get breathing. We breathe down to an area. So when we breathe into an area, it encourages blood flow. It creates that awareness between the brain and the genitals or the womb. And what we can do is use acupuncture points and without the needles to also help that process as well. And so there's things like exercise. Obviously, exercise really helps with circulation. We want really good heart. We want to try and get pelvic floor toning exercise is definitely going to get the blood flow to the genitals. Thinking about having sex. So, you know, women don't realize they take 20 minutes to reach arousal. Men can get there in 2 minutes. So there's always this, we take a little bit longer to warm up, don't we? Do you know? And how do you initiate, if you're going to be intimate with your partner, how do you initiate that process? You know, is it just wham bam, thank you ma'am, you know, we're doing it now? Or is there sort of a preliminary warm up thought process that goes on? And so there are lots of different things. One of the things that we do work with in kinesiology is that we work with the I'm dyslexic, hang on, my brain's gone dead. The AURILAR, oh my God, my brain's gone dead. But these are little points that we use around the ear. Auricular,
Okay.
what?
There we are.
I'm dyslexic, so you just have to ignore me. So I sometimes can get a word, and it definitely gets worse through menopause. So what we can do is actually, the ear is a representation of all the acupuncture points, and there is a particular point on the ear that works with the clitoris and the vagina and the penis. So it sort of helps to get energy to that area and blood flow to that area. And so recently I was thinking, oh, I always like to be a test guinea pig for myself. And I think, well, I'll stimulate that area and see what happens. And nothing was happening. I'm like, perhaps it doesn't work. And what we do is we either put you can put these ear clamps on them, or we use sort of what we call seeds on them, or we can put magnets on them, and it helps to stimulate the energy. So I was playing about with this, and I thought 15 minutes, nothing. And then I was like going on my day, and then all of a sudden the blood flow hit, the energy hit, and I was like, oh my God, it does work. So, so it's that sort of thing. That's just one of the things that we can do. But pelvic floor exercise to help to tone that area, to focus on that area, to breathe into that area. And, there's a whole range of tantric type exercises that are just rhythmic, flowing and breathing. And everyone gets a bit scared of tantric. It's so simple and so easy to do, and nothing scary or complex, but you could be doing that just to get the energy and the blood flow down to the genital areas.
Wow, I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
But I think I'm gonna bring it to a close, because otherwise this will be too long a video. But if anybody is struggling with this and doesn't want to go down the medication route, I think they need to be getting straight in touch with you, don't they? Because you've obviously got loads and loads of ways to help people to just get their genitals waking up again, really.
Yeah, and it's just, talking to women, contact me, email me, put a, on the group, just contact me on the group. And at some point, I do have lots of workshops about this, and classes and different techniques and different areas. So you might not like the tantric, but, Qigong might for you, or if not that, you just want to do some simple breathing, or just being aware, sort of. Working with the hypothalamus is a really good thing, and we tend to work with that more in kinesiology. So maybe sharing some tips and techniques and tools from kinesiology, and I'll be happy to do a workshop for the group.
Thank you so much, Gill.
Thank you.